For years, the fitness world has kind of preached this idea of no pain, no gain, right? Especially for building serious muscle. We push hard, lift heavy, feel stronger, look better. But what if all that intensity? What if it was secretly putting your heart health at risk? Today, we're diving into some really groundbreaking research that asks, well, what if there's a smarter, maybe even safer way to build muscle and strengthen your heart at the same time? Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is where we take complex research, break it down, and pull out those key nuggets of insight, helping you get well-informed fast. And today, our exploration takes us into the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine. We're digging into an article titled Effect and Mechanism of a New Method of Low-Intensity Resistance Training, combined with blood flow restriction on sports biomechanics of young people. Quite a title, but the research is fascinating. It's by a team including Yuexin, Meihou, Geng, Yiwei, Chen, and several others. Just for context, it was published online June 1st, 2025 in volume 24. So our mission today is to unpack this study, with real scientific clarity, understand what it actually means, and maybe see how it could change how we think about exercise. For muscle gain, sure, but also for that long-term heart health.
Absolutely. It's a really important intersection.
Okay, let's unpack this. So most of us know about high-intensity resistance training, right? HRT. Basically, lifting heavy weights, pushing yourself close to your limit.
Yeah, that's the standard approach.
It's kind of the gold standard for building muscle, getting strong.
Yeah.
Its effectiveness is, it's really well documented.
It is. HRT is definitely effective for getting bigger and stronger, no question.
Yeah.
But what's emerged over time and what studies have started pointing out is a pretty significant concern. Prolonged, consistent, high-intensity training can actually lead to increased arterial stiffness.
Arterial stiffness, so like less flexible arteries.
Exactly. Think of them like pipes needing to be elastic. Stiffness is bad news long term. And the thinking is it's likely due to those big intermittent spikes in blood pressure you get when you lift really heavy. Over time, that pressure can actually change the artery walls structurally, and that raises the risk of things like atherosclerosis.
Okay, hardening of the arteries. Not good.
Definitely not. So it raises this big question. How do we get the muscle benefits without hammering our arteries?
Right. So if HIAD has this potential downside, what if people tried? What's been the common fix, so to speak?
Well, one established approach, has been to combine it with aerobic exercise. So high-intensity resistance plus aerobic exercise training, or HIRAET.
Okay, lift heavy, then go for a run.
Basically, yeah. The logic is pretty sound. We know aerobic exercise, like jogging or cycling, is good for reducing arterial stiffness on its own. So the idea was you combine them and maybe the aerobic part cancels out or at least lessens the negative effects from the heavy lifting. Kind of a balancing act.
Okay, that makes sense. But that brings us to the core of this study we're looking at today. If HER has risks, and HRET is maybe a partial fix, researchers have been looking for something potentially better. Which leads us to this method. Low-intensity resistance training combined with blood flow restriction, LIR-BFRT.
Now, blood flow restriction.
It sounds kind of intense, maybe even a bit scary.
Yeah.
What exactly is BFRT?
Yeah, it does sound a bit dramatic, doesn't it? But it's less intimidating than it sounds. Basically, BFRT involves putting like a specialized cuff or band around a limb, an arm, or a leg while you're doing the exercise. But the key thing, and this is really crucial, is that it restricts blood flow. It doesn't stop it completely. It's not a tourniquet situation.
Okay, just slows it down a bit.
Exactly. It's carefully controlled pressure. And the hypothesis, the reason it's so interesting, is that because you're using low-intensity exercise with it, you don't need that heavy weight. So the idea is your blood pressure stays more stable. You avoid those big, sharp spikes you get with heavy lifting. And that could be the game changer for keeping arteries elastic and healthy.
Ah, okay. So lower intensity, but restricting the blood flow. Somehow that gets results. It seems counterintuitive, doesn't it? What did earlier research suggest about how effective this LIR-BFRT is compared to, just lifting heavy?
It does sound weird, I know. But the evidence is actually pretty compelling. Previous studies have shown that BFRT, when you pair it with low-intensity strength training, can actually lead to muscle growth, hypertrophy, and strength gains that are surprisingly similar to traditional high-intensity training.
Really? Similar results with lighter weights?
Yeah. Think about that. Comparable results without needing to lift super heavy. And some research even suggests it might help with joint range of motion and maybe even speed up recovery from muscle injuries. It's proving to be quite versatile.
Okay, so given all that background, the issues with HRT, the potential of LIR-BFRT, what was the specific goal of this study we're digging into? What were they trying to find out?
Well, their main aim was pretty clear. They wanted to rigorously check the effects of doing 12 weeks of this LIR-BFRT on 3 key things in young adults: body composition, muscle versus fat, muscle strength, and, really importantly, arterial elasticity. They wanted to see if the theory held up, basically. Could this be a scientifically sound way to get stronger and improve, or at least not harm, arterial health? Provide some solid evidence for using it.
Gotcha. And how did they set it up? Who took part, and how did they organize the groups?
So they recruited 55 college students aged between 18 and 35. And importantly, these were folks who didn't have regular exercise habits.
Ah, so a relatively untrained group.
Exactly. That helps make sure the changes they see are actually from the training. They screen them carefully, too. Excluded anyone with heart issues, lung problems, muscle or bone disorders that might affect exercise, or things like thrombosis risk. Safety first. Then they randomly split them, using a lottery method, into 3 groups. 18 went into the standard HIR group. 17 were in the combined OTRIK group, and 20 were assigned to the LIR-BFRT group. And yeah, they noted it had full ethical approval, which is always important to see.
Absolutely. So walk us through what each group actually did for those 12 weeks. How different were the workouts?
Okay, so everyone trained 3 times a week for 12 weeks. The HIRT group did standard resistance exercises, pull downs, presses, curls, things like that. The key was the intensity. 70% of their 1 rep max. So pretty heavy lifting. Each session was about 70 minutes.
Okay, standard heavy workout.
Right. Then the HIR AET group, they did 60 minutes of that same 70% 1RM resistance training, but then they added 15 minutes of jogging afterwards at about 60% of their peak oxygen uptake. So moderate cardio.
Lift heavy, then jog. Got it.
Yep. Now, the LIR-BFRT group, this is where it's really different. They did similar types of exercises, but at a much lower intensity, only 30% of their 1RM, much lighter weight.
30%. Wow, that's light.
It is. But crucially, they had those compression bands on their upper arms and thighs during the exercises. And the pressure wasn't just guessed. They calculated it specifically for each person using a formula based on their blood pressure and limb size. Ah, so it's precise.
Very precise. That's key for it to work safely and effectively. They did 4 sets of 10 reps, and they actually loosened the bands for 3 minutes between sets.
Okay, very distinct protocols. So what did they actually measure before and after the 12 weeks to see what happened?
They took quite a few measurements. They looked at body composition, specifically lean body mass, muscle and fat mass. They measured muscle strength using the 1RM for the lifts, and also isometric strength, like holding against resistance for the knee. And then, critically, they measured arterial elasticity. They looked at blood pressure, sure, but the main thing was brachial ankle pulse wave velocity, or PWV.
PW, that sounds technical.
It is, but it's considered the gold standard way to objectively measure how stiff or flexible your arteries are. Lower PWV is better means more elastic arteries.
All right, moment of truth then. After 12 weeks, what did they find? Let's start with body composition, muscle, and fat.
Okay, so for lean body mass muscle, both the HRT group and the LIR-BFRT group showed significant increases.
So both heavy lifting and low intensity with BFRT built muscle. Exactly, which aligns with what we know about resistance training generally and backs up those earlier BFRT studies. But here's the interesting bit. The HIR-AE group, the ones combining heavy lifting and jogging, they showed no significant change in lean body mass.
Really? No muscle gain in that group? That is surprising.
It is, and the researchers suggest it might be due to something called the interference phenomenon. Basically, doing intense cardio and intense strength training together might sometimes send conflicting signals at the cellular level, potentially hindering muscle growth.
Huh. So maybe doing both isn't always best for pure muscle gain.
It suggests there might be a trade-off, yeah. Something to consider. As for fat mass, none of the groups showed significant changes. The authors thought maybe 12 weeks wasn't long enough, or you'd need dietary changes too.
That interference thing is definitely food for thought.
Okay, what about pure strength? Did everyone get stronger? Yes, absolutely. On the strength front, the results were really clear. All 3 methods, HIRT, HIR-AT, and LIR-BFRT, led to significant increases in 1RM strength across the different exercises. High pull down, shoulder press, leg stuff, all improved. And knee isometric strength improved in all groups, too.
So the big takeaway there is you can get significantly stronger using that low-intensity BFRT method.
That's exactly it. Strength gains were comparable, even though the weight was much, much lighter for the BFRT group. It's pretty powerful evidence.
Okay, now for the big one, arterial elasticity. This was the potential red flag for aid. How did the arteries fare in each group? This feels like the crucial comparison.
It really is. And this is where LIR-BFRT just well, it really stood out. So the HRT group, the heavy lifters, they actually showed a slight increase in arterial stiffness. Their PWV went up by about 2.45%.
Not statistically significant, you said.
Not statistically significant in this study, no. But the trend was towards worse arterial health, reinforcing those earlier concerns.
Okay, what about the combo group, HRAET?
They did much better, as you might expect, with the added aerobics. They showed a significant improvement in arterial elasticity. Their PWV went down by about 6.5%. They also saw nice drops in blood pressure, so adding cardio helped mitigate the Ashite effect for sure.
Good, but how did LIR BFRT compare?
This is the kicker. The LIR BSRT group showed an even better improvement. Their PWV decreased by 7.60%.
Wow, over 7.5% improvement. So better than the group that added specific cardio.
Yes, significantly better improvement in arterial elasticity compared to HRAT, and obviously a huge difference compared to HR alone. It wasn't just neutral, it actively improved arterial health, and did so more effectively than the other methods tested.
Okay, 7.6% decrease in PWV. That's really impressive. It makes you wonder why. If LIR BFRT was the winner for arteries, even beating the group with added cardio, what's the science behind that? Why did it work so well?
Well, if you try and connect the dots mechanistically, it's quite fascinating. With HIS, muscle growth is mostly about that high mechanical tension, right? Sheer force. With LAR BFRT, even though the load is low, that blood flow restriction creates a lot of metabolic stress inside the muscle.
Metabolic stress, like a buildup of waste products because the blood flow is slowed.
Exactly. Things like lactate buildup. This metabolic stress seems to activate specific sensory nerves, efferent nerves, which sends signals that basically force the recruitment of those powerful, fast-twitch muscle fibers. Normally, you need heavy weights to recruit those fibers effectively. But BFRT seems to trick the system into recruiting them even with light weights because of that unique metabolic environment.
So you get the fiber recruitment needed for growth, but without the massive mechanical load.
Precisely, leading to similar muscle and strength gains, as we saw.
Okay, that explains the muscle part. But why the superior arterial benefits? Why better than even the aerobic combo group?
Right. Because LAR BFRT avoids those high forces, it also avoids the big intermittent spikes in blood pressure that seem to damage arteries over time with HR. Blood pressure stays much more stable during LAR BFRT exercise. This lack of repeated pressure shock allows the arteries not just to avoid damage, but actually improve their elasticity. The HRAET group improved because aerobic exercise is known to help arteries, that's true, but maybe the underlying urge component was still having some negative effect that the aerobics couldn't fully overcome. Whereas LIR BFRT seems to provide both the muscle stimulus and a direct positive environment for arterial health simultaneously. It's like getting the best of both worlds, maybe even better.
That makes a lot of sense. And this isn't just theory, is it? This has real practical implications for how people train.
Oh, absolutely. But the applications are pretty wide-ranging. Think about rehab. For someone recovering from surgery or injury, heavy lifting is often impossible or unsafe. LAR BFRT offers a way to build strength and potentially improve their vascular health without putting excessive stress on healing tissues. That's huge.
Yeah, definitely.
For athletes, maybe it's a way to add training volume or stimulus without the same systemic stress or cardiovascular risk profile as just adding more heavy lifting. Could be a smart supplement. And maybe most importantly, for people who already have cardiovascular concerns or are maybe older and more worried about arterial stiffness, LIR BFRT looks like a genuinely safer way to get the benefits of resistance training. They can get stronger without potentially making their arterial health worse.
And it really drives home that point about personalization, doesn't it? What's best really depends on the person and their goals and maybe their health status.
Exactly right. This study really supports tailoring exercise. It gives strong backing for developing programs that are specific to an individual, maximizing the gain's strength, muscle, while minimizing those potential risks, especially to the cardiovascular system. It's about finding that optimal individualized approach.
Now, as always, we need to be balanced. No study is perfect. What were the limitations here? What should we keep in mind?
Good point. There are a few things. First, the participants were all young adults, 18 to 35. We don't know for sure if these exact results would apply to, say, middle-aged or older adults. More research is definitely needed there.
Okay, age range is one thing.
Second, they didn't control for things like diet, sleep, or even stress levels. These things can definitely influence body composition and maybe even arterial health or strength gains.
Right. Someone eating poorly might not build muscle as well, regardless of the training.
Precisely. So future studies ideally would control those factors more tightly to get an even clearer picture of the training effect itself. And finally, while they control the percentage of 1RM, maybe future work could look at matching total work done or calorie expenditure even more precisely between groups, and maybe explore different frequencies, like training more or less often. Always more questions to answer.
Always more research needed. Okay, so to wrap this up, this deep dive really shows that while, yeah, traditional heavy lifting builds muscle, it might carry that hidden risk for arterial stiffness. Adding aerobics helps improve artery health, definitely. But kind of surprisingly, this low-intensity resistance training with blood flow restriction, LIRBFRT, it seems to do it all. It builds muscle and strength effectively, and it was even more effective at improving arterial elasticity than the other methods. It genuinely seems to stand out.
It really does. It offers comparable muscle and strength benefits to ERT, but with superior cardiovascular outcomes compared to both HERT and even HIR EAT in this study. It's a compelling package.
So here's a thought to leave you with. If lower intensity training done smartly with BFRT can give you similar muscle gains plus better heart health, what does that mean for the future of how we prescribe exercise? Is that old no pain, no gain mantra maybe? Well, maybe not a whole story. Could smarter, health-focused approaches be the way forward? What really stands out to you about this research, if you want to read the full details, definitely check out the original article. Again, it's Effect and Mechanism of a New Method of Low-Intensity Resistance Training, combined with blood flow restriction on sports biomechanics of young people by Yuexin and colleagues in the Journal of Sports Science and Medicine. And hey, if you found this dive interesting, make sure you follow the deep dive and turn on those notifications so you don't miss our next exploration into fascinating research. We'll be back soon.